Good evening and welcome to the Australian Stock Market Show. Now, with the All Ordinaries Index up over 2% last week, are we about to see the best run of the year unfold on our market over the next 2 months? Well, stay tuned as we'll discuss our thoughts on that shortly. We'll also take a look at the sectors on the Australian market, and for our main topic in tonight's show, we get into the ASX tech takeover targets. Who's next in the AI and chip boom? First up, we'll share our hot stock tip for the week, so sit back and relax. Again, tonight is jam-packed as we have lots of emails to answer. We'll also take your phone calls and give you the answers to some of the important questions around the market. Tonight we're excited to share our thoughts on some great stocks like NextDC, Macquarie Telecom Group, BrainChip Holdings, the sectors in the Australian market and more. So get comfortable as we'll get into those soon. I'm Dale Gillham and I'm your host for tonight. And joining me are two of our team of highly experienced analysts and professional traders, Janine Cox and Philip Tortevsky. And together we're Australia's most trusted stock market educators. Good evening, team. Welcome back, Janine.
Thank you. I've been to heaven and back.
You have. I can't tell you how much I missed you from last week.
Oh, look, I did miss you too when I was watching last week.
I know you. I got a text from you saying this is what you did wrong. That's really nice. Pedro did a great job last week. He will be back.
He did, yes. Great insight. I mean, you know, it's always nice when you get a completely new perspective on analysis, charts. So they did very well.
Yeah, well, Pedro will be back with more shows later on in December, and we've actually got a special guest for you in a couple of weeks' time, but I'm not going to tell you who that is, but it's a one not to be missed. But anyway, tonight, as mentioned, we get into the sectors in the Australian market, but first, let's take a look at this week's hot stock tip. Now, Phil, you've got to beat Pedro from last week, so what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to try. All right, well, tonight the hot stock tip is Hansen Technologies, code HSN. So let's get straight into it. On your screen right now is the marketindex.com, and I think I already get the tick that I'm above 30 cents, so I'll just throw that in there.
Well, you're not at $1.
You're not going to make it.
I'm at $5, so I think we win on that one. But anyway, Hansen is a global provider of software services and basically is a pioneer in providing some of the first web-based self-service and browser-based customer care solutions. Now, this particular stock has a performance 2024 year to date of positive 7%, a 1 year performance of positive 6.8%. It is lagging the sector.
Lagging a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it is lagging the sector quite a bit on a 1 year basis, minus 65%, and also lagging the ASX 200, which is behind by 11.9.4%. But what's quite interesting, if you look at some of the similar companies, go and take a look at CAT, because that stock price is actually flying at the moment. So this potentially is one of those stocks that is lagging in a sector that is, looking not too bad.
So far, I'm unexcited at the moment.
You'll get excited soon enough.
Will.
Well, it's got a strong buy on it, so what?
Yes, the analysts love it. The analysts love it, so we should like it. But I mean, look, sometimes it's important to get to the party early, as we say, Dale, and this could be one of those situations. But before we get to the charts, it's got a market cap of over 1 billion, which is quite nice, and ranked just outside the top 300. But anyway, let's get to the important stuff to get you excited there and get on the charts. Now, starting on the monthly, as always, I have marked up, if we zoom out, big picture first. Now, what's really intriguing about this stock right now, you know, it has come out since listing IPO, big accumulation type period. To me, this stock very much looks like it is in its expansion phase. As we mentioned, the stock's only trading at around $5. And what's so exciting about this one, the way it's unfolding right now, you can see I've marked these two dashed lines, if you will, and they represent periods, our students will know they represent very significant patterns in the market that happen all over stocks, and they do show what happens when markets do accumulate, and it is such a positive sign.
I like it.
Well, there you go. See, I thought you'd come around at some point, but I've also marked these horizontal lines here in black, and the real exciting part to me is the fact that since breaking through the all-time high in April 2015, we rose up, and then we found accumulation, agreements in price above the previous all-time high, telling us that, hey, buyers were willing to accept new prices. Then what followed was the obvious expansion. Now we're coming into another period where we broke through the previous all-time high there in October 2016, and we're holding generally above that new all-time high, saying buyers are willing to accept new prices at all-time high levels. So to me, with the way the stock is forming, you can see it's been falling much longer than it's rising, and it's only clawed back about half of that. also representing the fact that it is moving very well to this long-term momentum line, bounced off it very strongly in July 24. And so what often follows, we've shown time and time on this show, when stocks do accumulate, when they break out, it's going to go into a nice expansionary phase. I just want to finish off on the weekly chart and provide some caution, because we are approaching a level of previous resistance, which I've marked in this black rectangle area. You can see huge resistance all through these levels as I hover my mouse cursor through. So we're approaching that level now. The reason it's caution is because if you're looking at a trade right now, you've really got to weigh up your risk-reward scenario unfolding there to see if it really is worth the risk given how strong that resistance was. But hey, if it can get through to the other side of that resistance, then I think in an expansive type market, good accumulation, you know, the stock could really start to run up very soon.
Well said.
Interesting, isn't it?
Anything
I
you
just
want to
love
add
the
to it,
patterns that you've identified on this one, because that's something that sort of stands out as what we call accumulation in a bull run. And having two of those really sort of would, if that breakout would really underpin a decent rise out of it.
I mean, how many times have you seen that in the market? You know, these patterns for so many years, even backtesting over 100 years, you see these same patterns unfold in the markets, but hey.
Makes it easy, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, there's your hot stock tip for the week anyway, so thank you for that, Phil. So that is it for our hot stock tip. But shortly, we are going to get into our topic for the night. But before we do, right now is your opportunity to get involved in the show and have your questions answered. Now remember, we prioritise phone callers, so call now on 039290 9988, or you can text your question to the number on your screen. Now the first caller into the show right now gets a free copy of my book, Accelerate Your Wealth, so pick up your phone and dial 039290 9988. Now while you do that, tonight we will give you our thoughts on the Australian sector, so let's get into that.
On your screen right now is a watch list of the Australian sectors. Now you can see at the top of the list, we've still got Infotech leading the way. They're up 53.5% for the year so far. The question now is, with Trump being elected, will Infotech grow and have more exponential growth, or is it more likely to slow down? And that's what a lot of people are asking right now.
Yeah, they are. But I mean, how can you fault the IT sector at the moment? You're seeing data centres pop up more and more, and just by the very nature of AI and cloud type software, it requires continuous investment, expansion, upgrades, all that kind of stuff.
Which is a topic for tonight, which is exciting.
Well, I shouldn't say too much, should I?
No, you better not. The financial sector up 30% so far, so a lot of the banks are doing just fantastically, so get on those. Consumer discretionary up 17.67%. Obviously there, with the Black Friday coming up, we should see some interesting signs there. Are you expecting a big Black Friday? I would be expecting that it would be.
Well, the consumer staples and consumer discretionary sectors to me are interesting because, particularly with the way interest rates, hovering at the moment, you would expect a lowering of rates. And we did see, particularly consumer staples over the last week, the sector price really dipped about 5% just before they released the RBA decision. So I think with interest rates staying the way they are, although it's up 17% at the moment, so it's making me look like a fool, but I think,
But everything rises at this period.
Of course, yes. Yeah, it does. You're right about that. But, in terms of further growth, a lower rate environment would be better for those two sectors.
And real estate's done really well, about the same level, 17.5%. We could see some more upside there. Industrials have room to move. So some of these areas we're now looking into are the ones to watch, 9.74% up. Healthcare is up 6.9%. I'm expecting big moves from healthcare over the next 18 months. But in saying that, there's a lot of talk at the moment about Trump, the Trump effect, if you like, and what that could do. Or should I say, is it the JFK effect?
Is it? Well, he's still alive, so.
The effect that could have on stocks that are involved with vaccines and also hospitals as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But communications services only up 4%. So Telstra's really going to be interesting. It's holding it back, but we're expecting a big move out of Telstra eventually, so keep watching that one. Utilities up 2.85%. This is one of the laggards. So these last, from healthcare down, are the ones really to watch for 2025. I think obviously we're going to see some more growth in some of these other ones as the market keeps churning over, but materials and energy could be big ones.
Energy, I think you just mentioned the Trump effect, right? And you know, energy, I think, is one sector that is a must watch.
But are they talking it up more than what there is? That's the thing, you know. I mean, we've talked about Warren Buffett's move into energy, you know, and he must know something. But, you know, I don't want to sort of say that, yes, you have to get into energy when it may be that it doesn't move as fast as what it has in the past. We've always expected materials and energy sectors to do well in the bullish
takeovers
times.
in energy over the next couple of years.
Bit of consolidation, you think?
Oh, look, absolutely. There's a lot of small energy companies, alternative energy companies, sustainable energy companies, whatever you want to call them. I think there's going to be a lot of argy-bargy going on in that sector over the next couple of years, if that makes sense, while different companies position themselves. So wouldn't surprise me if some of the big ones start doing some takeovers.
That's a really good point.
But anyway.
Look, I would like to have a look at the healthcare sector if we can just quickly. This is a chart.
15 seconds.
Okay. This is a chart of the healthcare sector consolidation. Now, we just saw that same sort of effect on. That was the chart that Phil showed with the stock that we looked at, Hansen Technologies. Now, you can see a similar sort of pattern, but over a much larger time frame here on this is CSL essentially, because the healthcare sector is dominated by CSL. But look how it's coming back to that line to find support. A breakup out of that means, you know, we're going north in a big way.
All right, well, that is it for our thoughts on the sectors in the Australian market. Now, before we get into our first email, remember, to get your questions answered live on air, you will need to call into the show or text. You can also send your questions to info@wealthwithin.com.au and we'll answer them in next week's show. Now let's get into our first question. Our first email is from Christina. I'm a mid to long-term investor. I've been following your show, and in May this year, you mentioned that the materials sector is likely to start rising next year. Shares like MIN and S32 will be in an upward trend in the coming several years. And so, with the new election results in America, do you think this trend is still intact? I'm going to go to our Trump expert over there, Phil.
I've got my red tie on, but yeah, look, he is pro fossil fuel. Even in his inauguration speech or speech when he won, he mentioned, you know, leave the liquid gold to me, and he is going to implement the fossil fuel strategy. Now we can only go by what he says. The only, I guess, issue with a lot of the stuff that Donald brings is that a lot of his policies are inflationary, and so you know how that translates with obviously China being the big importer of the fossil fuel space is yet to be seen. But I mean, you know, and how that translates into Australia is a whole nother thing. We do have a lot of stocks, some of our biggest players, Rio, BHP, Oz Minerals, they do have US exposure. So I do think...
Yeah, so in the materials space, that is.
Yeah, materials, yes.
Necessarily energy we're talking about, yeah.
Well, materials, yes.
So materials, you've just mentioned the big ones. They're the ones that we've got to watch once they turn around and take off. I think she's got her eye on the ball, actually.
I mean, obviously, MIN's been in a longish down trend, and it hasn't sort of shows a little bit of a spark of life, and then it falls away again. S32 did take off for quite a while there. It's come back a little bit, looking better now. But
when we're talking about trend, you know, we're not talking about that these stocks are in a great uptrend now. We're talking about... Is she asking that, you know, do we have the same view now that Trump's been elected? I think so.
I think we do.
Yeah.
For materials generally, I think so, until we get proven wrong. Now, in terms of mineral and S32 specifically, I think S32's looking much better than mineral resources at the moment. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to look at the chart and wait for that turn, because we're talking about materials coming off a low. So we're looking for a reversal first and foremost, which is still not yet confirmed. So once that happens, then we can really start getting excited and talking about the uptrend that's you know, to follow.
And our material sector pretty much tends to... The fortune of it is what China's doing. I mean, if Trump's doing something in America and putting tariffs on China's goods, well, obviously there's going to be less goods going to America. We don't have a huge trade going to America, so it's more of us as what's the China effect of the Trump administration, and if they stop, you know, if they're not expanding, then our materials aren't going to be going to there, are they? You know?
That's right.
And our big one is iron ore.
Or it starts a trade war and then they start putting tariffs on everything else.
Well, that's the other thing too. But hey, as they say, watch this space. But anyway, next is DeWitt asking our thoughts on Drone Shield. Now, I'm currently analysing Drone Shield Limited, and I'd really appreciate any insights you have on recent performance and future potential. In particular, what indicators or market conditions would signal a good entry or exit point for DRO. I'm going to go to you, Janine, because I know Drone Shield is your favourite stock.
Not.
Not. It was a microcap that I saw years ago at the microcap conference, and I was impressed with it then.
Look, I was impressed with the rise that we saw on this stock, and if we just have a look at the chart for a minute to work out where we think it might be going, that'll help. Now, when we see rises like this, they're not necessarily going to be repeated straight away. We're talking about something that's never happened in the history of the stock. It's gone up 523%. But with a lot of talk about investment spending and spending in these sort of tech areas.
It's in the defence space,
It's in the defence space, which there's going to be a lot of money being spent in that area over the coming years. So, but look, I would say that, you know, it's had its time, and this is what happens to a lot of stocks when they first take off, is that people will get onto them. There'll be a mass flood of it. It'll be talked up in different different websites,
and it
was just actually pushed to the hilt. And so it's just coming back to a more normal level, which, you know, I would be quite excited about where it's coming back to right now, but it's gone back below $1. I'd say once it gets back above that level again and we see a move through, say, where I've marked my black line, I'd be really, you know, if you're looking at these sort of stocks, not everyone should, may I say, because you need to be able to trade it. It's not one thing to jump on it. Look, and use the example of the previous rise before. People who jumped on this thing, they're probably right back to where they started or in loss right now. And that's simply because they haven't got the knowledge to be able to recognise how to get out of it.
Well, it's so important, you know, when you look at a chart, you understand what is happening with the price. So, as you rightfully mentioned, education is the first thing. But I mean, just by looking at drone short, I know, you know, not to toot the own horn, but we picked this one back in January.
Yep, I think I've heard this one before. Shall I get the little one? Or the drum.
Is
there a drum roll? Come on.
Be gentle with
You've got to
okay?
celebrate something. She's come back and she's already...
I know, she's already hammering you.
I thought you had a
Or
holiday.
maybe I get the turn-table out.
Oh, yes.
More your thing,
well, that was in a previous life. But anyway, if we go back to the chart and have a look for you, what I'm referring to is that, you know, back around January, the stock hadn't really exploded or expanded in what was that euphoric type price action, right? And as the stock started rising, we really saw that, and we saw the height of that around these periods in July 2024. And that's when, you know, we started getting emails in, calls in saying, hey, Drone Shield looks good. And it's like, well, this is representing euphoric type price action. Generally, what goes up that fast is going to come down that fast. And
but he's asking, he said, what's a good entry point and exit point? Now, to me, that you can't ask for both. You're either in the stock or you're not.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, if you're in the stock, it's about what's the exit point, and you should have had.
Well, that's long gone.
That's long gone.
So now it's about trying to manage what you've got.
And the entry point was also long gone. So right now it's waiting for the price to reverse. I mean, you're right. Entry and exit points are, as you say, long gone. Right now the stock is falling. As Janine's marked this level around 57, 58 cents, I would wait for the price to start to, you know, approach these support levels. And then that's only the first part. Then
there's a process, isn't there?
Yes,
there's a whole stage of things that you've got to tick the boxes for.
Exactly, yes. Wait to see the reversal at price, confirmation in price, and then obviously get your buy rules on top of that. So there's quite a bit to go right now if you're looking at Drone Shield for a buying opportunity.
So keep it on your watch list, but don't do anything right now. That's what you're both saying?
Yes.
All right, 2 thumbs up there. Well, that is it for our take on Drone Shield now, with the Australian technology sector standing head and shoulders above all other sectors this year. How much further can it go? Throughout history, we have seen that nothing goes up forever. However, given the ever-evolving nature of technology, including artificial intelligence, betting that a top is coming very soon could be a very costly mistake. But blindly buying our biggest IT stocks and expecting prices to rise without significant corrections or bear markets is also playing with fire. So let's get the panel's view on the future of the tech sector in Australia. Is it likely to grow from here? I want to go to you, Janine, first.
Well, firstly, if it doesn't completely get swallowed up by takeovers, but I mean, that's a good thing in itself for investors to be aware of.
Who's going to swallow it?
But look, that's the thing, isn't it? The big fish overseas. But firstly, it's important to think about where government are putting their attention. So wherever government put attention or they grant licences, that's typically where there's growth. Now, we actually do rely on technology for growth in the economy. It's a huge area now. It's not going to change, and the government have actually put a high priority on that and said it's in the national interest some years ago. So investors should stay focused on it, I think.
All right, well, let's now take a look at this from Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, which stated Australia's AI market is projected to reach a staggering $315 billion US by 2028. Now, with the expansion of AI applications, AI chips are becoming more critical than ever to support these AI-powered solutions. This graph shows AI chip growth could reach $165 billion by 2030. So, with this type of growth expected for the chip space, where do you see the opportunities lie, or where do you see the opportunities lie for investors, Phil?
In those little silicone chip areas like the semiconductor space, right?
Yeah.
That is basically where, as these chips continuously evolve, improve, they require upgrades, they require, maintenance, if you will, or what have you, or new ones. You notice with your phone and your laptops, every 2 years it seems that you have to buy a new laptop or a new phone these days, that they die out. But semiconductor space is basically where that growth will come from.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I agree with that anyway. And what's quite interesting is that the mergers and acquisition activity in the Australian tech scene has been heating up recently. In the first quarter of 2024, we saw 46 tech mergers and acquisition deals worth a whopping $6.5 billion. Now, the biggest deal was Renesas Electronics acquiring Altium for $5.7 billion, making it the largest disclosed deal in the industry. Now, this activity marks a 333% increase from the previous quarter's total, reflecting Australia's growing appeal to global investors. And that's not all. Global investment giant Blackstone made waves earlier this year by acquiring Australian data centre giant AirTrunk for $23.5 billion. Now, this is not only Australia's largest corporate transaction of the year, but also the biggest data centre deal globally. It's clear Australia has been earmarked as a favourite for data centres, so the real question is why?
That's a good question. I mean, when you think about this from a global perspective, particularly if you look at the big giants like Google and Amazon, they need so much data space because it's growing all the time, and the need for this is just going exponential. So, and Australia is cheap. So look at it that way. It's a cost-effective way for them to get exposure. There's been just in the tech space itself, not just data centres, but in the tech space itself, we're looking at the whole industry as being an opportunity for some of these big global companies. And we've seen the big, I was actually really upset when I saw some of the bigger tech stocks in Australia being swallowed up. So, we had the WAX in Australia, and then now we've got the, what is it, WIX? WX?
Oh,
now?
No, but yeah.
All the A's have disappeared.
The A's and A's have disappeared, like Altium's disappeared, and
Afterpay.
Afterpay, that was it on that Appen. Appen's still around.
Appen's still around, but it's been absolutely pummeled. Hopefully it's it's on its way back
But
now.
you keep telling me that's my favourite stock.
I do. I'll never let you live that one down.
I know. Well, anyway, so how about we now get into some opportunities, Phil? So you want to bring those up?
Yeah, sure. All right. So, I mean, we're dealing with stocks that are in the semiconductor space first and foremost, but also in that, general AI type technology sector or
so
area.
Data centres and everything else?
Yes, all that kind of stuff. So first up, we've got an ETF, if you will, going a little different, but it is a global ex-semiconductor ETF named SEMI. Now you can clearly see, particularly what we spoke about just before about the semiconductor industry being so vital in terms of producing these chips and where that growth will come. It's like, as you said during the gold rush, the shovel provider during the gold rush was the one that made the most money, right? But anyway, from a technical perspective, this is definitely in an uptrend. You can clearly see nice runs up. We're seeing expansions. You can see the first leg that came through in September 2022, ran up to September 23, and look at this second leg. It is double in price, also running up. And what's quite nice is that, we're talking about just before Drone Shield, euphoric moves that are met, obviously, on the way down in the same instance. But what we've seen in this example here is the sellers actually come through and play their hand. And what they've done since creating the all-time high in June 2024, we saw 2 months of selling, but look how strong the buys picked it up in August and September. The huge tail on that bar, all buys picked up through this level, closed higher again in September, and now we're starting to see green. So we've had a really healthy pullback, and that, if I apply one of these momentum lines, has really supported the stock on the way up. So, I mean, in the short to medium term, there could even be an opportunity right now to pick up after this healthy correction. It just depends, what your outlook is, how you're looking to play this space. But you know, also on the back, there is the huge tailwind being in an industry that is growing, that's going to see, you know, capital flowing through. So I quite like it.
And so should investors buy something like this and just hold it regardless of direction, or should they still manage it like a stock?
Oh, I would always say manage it like a stock. I mean, we just spoke about this yesterday on Monday, the buy and hold approach on even some of your biggest stocks, you know, your NABs, banks, what have you. Any stock, regardless, they're not immune to experiencing bull markets and bear markets. You know, there are a few that have performed really well, like the CSLs and what have you, but still, that's gone sideways for 4 years. So think about the opportunity cost there.
Absolutely.
But this one here, what it does allow you to do is it avoids the stock-specific risk, if you will. But keep in mind, regardless of that, it is still quite volatile. So if you're thinking you're going to get something that is really stable...
Yeah, well, that surprised me, actually, because we've looked at a lot of ETFs and the gains that have happened on some of them have not been that significant compared to, say, the likes of this one.
Which is nice on one hand, but then you've also got to be able to stomach the volatility on the other side, manage the risk. So I quite like it in an uptrend, rising. You know, if it can take out these highs on the weekly chart, what do we have here? Through 18th of October, if we can take that 1730, 1750 high out, then there is a short-term opportunity in there as well. So, yeah, why not?
All right, well, let's look at the next one, eh?
All right.
Oh, you're going to hand the ball to me.
Yes.
Pass the baton. All right, next DC, I really like this one. We're seeing this really nice consolidation that's occurred, and it's just sort of rolled over a little bit. If it takes out this low in October, we know just let it go, let it unfold to the downside and wait for a better opportunity. But a move to the upside, given it's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attempts, would be a pretty positive sign, I think, of future opportunities. And we're just looking at the trend as it's gone up on this angle. It could actually come back to the angle of that trend. So that's the sort of short-term risk, if you like, at the moment for this. But we know that when these stocks get going, that we see some significant moves up. So if we just look at a couple of these rises here, you know, it's a tech stock. So we're talking about stocks making 50, 60% over what, a 12-month period or so. That's the sort of thing that you could be in for. It's about the timing of the entry and when to get in. But the good thing that I see with this one is that we do get lots of opportunities down low to enter this type of stock. So we just need to be patient and wait.
Well, that's the thing, right? You know, it's one thing trying to look at this stock after having this huge run through here and thinking, hey, is there an opportunity? But the stock's settled down. And that in itself, the fact that prices settled down, started, you know, accumulating.
Well, we've got agreement, haven't we, at the moment?
That's right. And so that actually gives you the idea that, hey, the opportunity or the next opportunity is just around the corner, rather than looking at this stock after a huge euphoric run, you know, like it did through this period in February 2024.
Yeah, and it's not to say that all stocks come back to the angle of that overarching trend, because sometimes they start a new angle and there's a new accelerated trend unfolding.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, again, this one, correct me if I'm wrong, next DC is in data centres.
Yes, data centre. There's one down in South Melbourne here.
Yeah. So again, in a space, you know, growing and going to grow.
Cloud's a big space, isn't it? It's just growing and growing. But I mean, you know, you're looking at these areas with IT. It's either software, it's supplying the hardware, or it's data storage.
Yeah.
So, and all of that you need for the cloud, because obviously NextDC is providing space to put the computers in for these companies like your AWS, and Microsoft is now big with Azure. I think it's Azure is their version of AWS, I think. I don't think that's their AI version, but they're doing their cloud services with Azure. And then you've got Akamai, which has been the original big one, which, you know, anything from Apple you bought came through Akamai servers. All Netflix videos all came through Akamai servers. Right. And they were all around the world in data centres because they need those data centres so that they can drop the videos into a location where you are. Like, you know, if you're downloading a video off Amazon or Netflix or, you know, whatever it is, they pull it down into that data centre and then anybody else in Melbourne can do it, so it's faster. So it's a whole lot of data storage, a lot of software, a lot of computers, but it's a lot of opportunity in there.
It's always nice when you're looking at a sector or a space that continuously needs growth to function, to survive.
And new threats come on and new software is needed, the threat protection and everything else, so it's self-fulfilling, isn't it? How about we get another stock?
All right, so next we have Macquarie Telecom Group. Now again, another interesting proposition here in terms of the chart. We've obviously got, you know, a very nice, if we zoom out big picture, this stock is, in its expansion phase. Some questions could be asked, are we nearing the end in terms of how far this stock has to go? But given the sector it's in, it's always important to be trading with the running with the tide, as they say. How often do you find situations where you look at a stock, it's got very good fundamentals underneath given the sector and the movement, and you think, oh, it looks a bit toppy to me, I'll stay away. And you would have made that mistake back in 2003 to 2007, staying away from stocks looking like this. So keep that in mind in itself. It is coming off a really nice pullback during July 2024. And if we mark up one of...
What about when it gets to the $100 mark? Because, that's a big psychological resistance level for a lot of stocks. And, we could see it slow down. It has already slowed down there, so it might struggle there for a little while.
Look, it might. But at the end of the day, to me, $100, $1, really, if price is being bought up there, if it's being supported.
But that's to you. But when we're talking about the masses, you don't worry about things like that because you know how to forecast a price projection.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at stocks and when they go through certain levels, often we see this sort of thing happening. So why does a stock stop right around $80 as a whole number? That's the thing. It happens all the time, as we know. This one's not far off $50, so the chances are of it stopping. Multiples of that is pretty high. It could just hit 100 again or come back up to that and then get stuck. It could rip right through that and then go to 120 and stop.
Yeah.
But that's an advantage for anyone who's wanting to trade this sort of stock, because you can then just say, okay, it's gone up 50% here. Will it go up 50% there? Well, possibly there's $120, 40 odd percent.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, and you've got to factor in, although it might hit $100, what's it going to do from there? Because that's the most important part to me. If it goes to $100, pulls back to 90, and you sell, and then the stock goes on to 150, you're going to be kicking yourself. So
you could just get back in, couldn't you?
Well, you could.
And I think us Aussies, we're maturing on the market now. Like if you said in the 90s, $100 stock, most people would choke.
Yeah.
Even into the early 2000s to 2010, people would be a bit,
Price is not the
reticent,
issue.
price more sensitive. But now we've got stocks like CSL and those that are multiple hundreds of dollars, So I think we're getting used to that more so now. Whereas in America, they'll, look at Berkshire Hathaway Class A shares. What are they? $500 million or something? I don't know, for one. That's just phenomenal price for one share. But there's, I think we're getting used to that. So I'm not too worried about it. But I do agree with you. It could be resistance level firstly, and then it stall and then take off again.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
What else we got?
All right. Our next one is this nice little one that I like, Brain Chip Holdings. And it's below $1, yes, so don't shoot me. We're seeing this nice little rise off the bottom and then a nice consolidation down here. And 1, 2, 3, we've got 4 or 5 weeks up, a test of that low, potentially short-term test, but this is a perfect little setup. If it does take out that prior high, now I know you've probably got your magnifying glasses out there trying to have a look at what we're talking about here, so I'm just going to make it really easy for you to see it if that's you. But we've got a resistance level there. Once it gets through that again, it could be on its way and head back up towards $1. Depending on the criteria that you set for your portfolio will determine whether you could trade it or not. You might have something that says, well, I'm not trading stocks below $1, or I'm not trading stocks that are outside of a certain index. Well, that's fine. If this stock does get through that high and establish a nice trend, which, we haven't seen a really nice one for a while, but if it does get on this nice trend, then it could be going up for quite a while. We can see that there's 2 highs over here on the left-hand side. That's up well over $1 that it could head to.
Oh yeah, and if you just analyse, to me, what stands out on this chart, if I just take that away and this level through here, what really stands out?
You took my analysis.
Sorry.
What are you doing, Phil?
I just want to highlight something where you've got
How can I go back to it now?
It's okay. Let's just go back to the chart real quick. But what really stands out to me is this period through here. You can see that all throughout this downtrend, what really changed in terms of buy support was what happened during February 2024. And that coincided with a huge chunk of volume coming into the market.
Yeah, good point.
So coming at the all-time low, we saw really different terms of buying coming through relative to what we'd seen in the past. And then we got to see what the sellers had to offer, and really they never took out the strength of that buying. We're starting to see a rise back up again. So I think this buying was some serious buying that came in, and I'm with you. If we take this high out, then we've probably got a short-term opportunity there for this one.
I'm actually liking it. That does look really, really
Not
good.
bad, yeah.
But I still worried about the name. Is that this is all part of the Matrix brain chip? Like, what are they putting? I don't know what they actually do. I haven't really looked at it yet, but
it's skipping.
I wouldn't worry about names.
I was just about to do a pun and I didn't mean to, but it's skipping me my mind what it actually does.
It's all about the looks, you know. It's funny, we should say you shouldn't judge someone and say that it's about their looks, should they? But when it comes to a chart, if it's not sexy enough, we don't
it's
we
not
don't
sexy,
want it.
we don't want to know about it. All right, let's look at another sexy chart then.
All right then. APX, Appen Limited. Oh, what can you say about your favourite one?
My favourite stock, as you keep
telling me, and you can say it's your favourite one now because it's in a nice trend going up.
I told you it was not. I keep saying it's not yet, but it will be soon, and then finally.
As soon as
I was on the money.
You were on the money, and it does look nice. Okay, this really nice little trend moving up again. Short-term resistance we could see around this high here. We've also got some, you know, there's some. A few peaks there, so it might stop before that, but somewhere between what's that, $3 and $4, which is a big gap, I know, but you know, historically we can see that that's proven to be an important point for the stock once it does this. But you know, I'm not even concerned about how high it's gone yet. When you look at the history and where this thing could go once it does get going, you know, we've got a really nice level around $10. Could it get back up there? Well, yeah, it could. I'd just like to see a bit more of a test of this high here, a pullback, and then if you're in it more medium term, that could be an option.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you want to look at it from a long-term perspective, because you know, clearly you saw this stock on listing. What generally can happen, obviously, not only you know, the company listing well, providing good
and then the stories just kept getting better, and it
gets better, and then it, you know, experiences the end of the story, the euphoria falls all the way back down. And now coming into this new phase, you potentially do want to see if it's going to have that second real strong run up. You know, the situation change. I haven't had a chance
new CEO, lots of things happening.
or the direction of the company, fundamentals somewhat. I haven't had the chance to look at that. But what I will say on the weekly chart in terms of a little bit of a cause for concern is that while volume has picked up quite a lot throughout this period here, as the stock is rising, have a look what volume's doing. It's falling away.
Good point.
So that's not generally what you want to see with a stock moving on higher and higher, especially as we're approaching.
But at least it's not spike volume. You know, if it was a fly in the you know, I don't want to say what I was thinking.
Fly in the pan.
Ointment.
Fly in the ointment. It would actually look more like this, where you've got it ramping up and then bang, one big volume spike, and then it just drops away to nothing. We're not seeing that. We're just seeing a gradual decline, which is really nice rather than that. And all it needs to do is break out again from that. And we're off again on potentially a much longer trend. So, Dale, look, I think, you know, you've outdone yourself this week.
Just another example of my fortune-telling skills. As they tell me, you know, it's like you get people saying to you, you know, you chartist, you know, you're on.
You read the tea leaves.
You read the tea leaves, but the tea leaves were right this time.
Can I just say, you know, with that argument itself, I mean, it's been proven. A man named Jim Simons, you know, outperformed Warren Buffett over the last 30 years, and not one of his analysts or traders in the fund came from finance background. They were scientists or mathematicians, and they used things like, you know, when you research your stuff, geometry is the word that comes out. Well, what's geometry? Patterns and trends.
Patterns, trends.
And so, you know, that whole argument, it has been proven. Tea leaf reading does not exist.
I've been trying to read the book on Jim Simons, and I tell you, it's pretty heavy going at some stage.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I would implore everyone to go and read his story, because, I mean, if you think that technicals are, you know, as Dale said, tea leaf reading, then have a good read, because you might be changing your mind very soon.
Quietly impressed. Let's look at another stock and do the tea leaf reading again.
All right. All right. Next we have Weebit Nano. Now, this was an interesting one, right? It is very volatile, so I will, you know, caution that. You can clearly see this one is not for people who cannot stomach volatile moves up and down. You can clearly see, you know, as the stock ran through in November 2022, it was, you know, you'd be thinking at this point, hey, this is beautiful expansion. We're going to get a nice run up, and then, you know, watch these pullbacks as it comes through, pulls back, and then obviously capitulates. So what's quite nice about it with that whole type move is that we're coming back into this area where price was agreed upon at around $2, and we've seen huge buying come out of that.
Would you buy a stock like that based on the way that it unfolds?
Look, I'm happy to trade any stock as long as I've got the right strategy, the right rules. And
my next question is, would you have bought a stock like this before you learnt to trade properly?
Well, I have in the past. Yes, I did.
You did.
Yep.
That's why you learnt.
And that's exactly my point.
Why he rings me and there's Dale help.
Yeah, and that's what it was. You know, for most new people coming into the market, they go into the lower end of the market, the more volatile, the penny stocks, and you do see this kind of price action. It's the hardest market to trade, the most difficult, and you know, it does take skill. But if we just go back to the chart and have a look at Weebit, what's real nice, and I'll mark the horizontal level through here. You know, no brainer, $2 has been very important for this stock. We've bounced off it very strongly now, so I think now is definitely the time to be looking at this one. If we can also add, we're coming through and breaking some, you know, medium-term resistance in terms of momentum. Buying this week is probably, you know, not wise from that point of view. I would like to see it settle down from this level. There was a very good opportunity to get him back on the 8th of November. So if you've missed that,
with hindsight.
yeah, now's the time to wait and wait for that next setup.
All right, I like that one. So
All right, the next one we've got is TNE Technology 1, which, you know, all I can say about this is if you're not on it, then you've missed the boat. This one is just long gone. If it was in your criteria, you might have to be waiting a lot longer to get in it again. But that's not to say that it won't come up. These sort of stocks they come around eventually. So we can see it's gone well beyond the angle of the trend. And that was what I was discussing earlier, that some stocks will accelerate away from the angle of the trend. They won't always come back to the original trend, make a new one. I'd say that you know, in time, this stock will come back to this new angle. Once it does, then is when you're looking for an opportunity. So you just have to be patient if you're not already in it. If you're in it, it's about looking for a good trailing stop loss under the stock. Dale's book is a good place to start, but also, you know, if you're worried about it, that means you just haven't got enough, you know, experience yet in terms of working out how to determine the right rules for a stock like this or any stock. But that's okay. Everybody's got to start somewhere, like Phil was saying before. So it's just a matter of getting that little piece of knowledge, and it may be, you know, just spending time having a chat with one of our you know, lovely consultants who have done the course themselves and can put you on the right track.
well, look, I think, you know, this stock is one of those ones where you've got to be right now where it is. It's got to be thinking short term. You can't be thinking long term on this.
Well, a lot of people do, and that's the concerning part about it. They think that maybe it's doubled in value for them depending on when they bought it.
You can't buy yesterday's return.
Well, they might be thinking it could triple. So that's what happens. People see dollar signs once the money is there in their trading account.
If this stock doubles in the next 12 months, look, I'd bet your house on it.
Oh, you won't be betting
I'd
anything.
bet his house on it too. But it's not going to do it. It's searching for a high, and that's what I'm saying short term. It might be next week, next month, or 6 months' time.
Look, we don't know how crazy the market's going to get over the next 18 months to 2 years or so, but normally, based on history, it gets incredibly crazy. If you go back prior to 87,
how vertical can it go, and for how long can it go?
Well, this has almost had three or four
anywhere.
You know, increases of the gradient that it's run. You know, you've got two there that you've marked, and you could probably even add another one that it's even steeper.
I could add another two.
Another two, and you know, you take Drone Shield or any stock in history, vertical lines generally met vertically on the way down.
Yeah, but we say that about some stocks, and then we see them, you know, double, triple, and keep going sometimes. So.
But then at some point they will, when they look like that.
When they look like that, I'm betting we're searching for high sometime soon. So that's not my most exciting stock for.
So what should they look out for then in terms of preparing for that?
Well, you want to look for it to move, for one, back to a natural gradient of rise and wait for that next opportunity. Let it you know, give you...
Like Drone Shield, we saw a big reversal in price. That's the first warning sign, isn't it?
Correct, yes. Yeah, and you know, you really have to accept as an investor or trader that, hey, you're not going to catch every opportunity.
Yep.
So if you miss the boat on this one, forget about it, get it out of the mind, keep watching it, wait for the next one. But hey, you can't be on every stock.
All right, so we've got one more, haven't we?
All right, lucky last. Did you want to do this one, Phil?
Yeah, sure. Now, this one is called Big Tin Can.
Big tin can.
Big Tin Can Holdings.
Sounds like a telco. You put string between them and you're fine.
Well, the chart looks like a big tin can, I'll tell you that much. Right now, I don't even know why this one made the list. We'll have to have a chat to Pedro about that. But
it might have bottomed, looking at the pattern.
Oh, yeah, look, might have. It's a bit early for me to say that it has. You know, if we just look at the way the nature of this fall, I'll zoom out the monthly chart here.
What do you want to see to confirm it turnaround?
Very simply, if you just hover your eye through as this stock is reversing, one thing that you're not really seeing is, you know, the market form a high, but there was an opportunity through there, but look, it never went on with it. you want to see the market form a higher base for one to give you an indication that, hey, sellers are drying up and the buyers are dominating the conversation. Right now, we've got sellers through there. Buyers haven't been able to take out what sellers in the most recent price action have been able to offer. Yeah, sure, we've got a few months of rise, but we're coming out of that all-time low. So I do want to see, first, how buyers perform from this level.
Yes.
Sellers perform from this level. If buyers can hold up and be more dominant.
Test that bottom. You want the bottom.
Yeah, either test or show that the buyers are more dominant than the sellers in that relationship, and then start to think about reversals, not yet.
Yep.
All right, well done. Thanks for that, Phil and Janine. But thanks for team. Now stay with us as we'll be right back after this short break.
This week on Talking Wealth, John Addis joins the studio to discuss how to avoid costly investing mistakes.
Losses are part of the learning process and you need to embrace it. It's unusual for a plane to just have the pilot fly straight into the ground. Normally something goes wrong and then another thing goes wrong and then something else goes wrong and then the plane crashes. And investing mistakes are a little bit like that.
Rod North and I discussed the implications of the recent US election.
The impact of the Trump win was so significant, it's taken the Dow Jones to an all-time record. And as markets continue to rise, you've got to look and say, well, where could this market go?
Dale and I discussed the recent surge in Bitcoin and is now the time to buy.
I think Trump's pro-Bitcoin simply because he's sort of anti-establishment.
From a technical perspective, this market really is one of the cleanest, simplest markets to be able to trade. You would be able to make an absolute
timing,
make an absolute killing out of this market.
Get your free 7-day trial now to watch this and more.
Only on Talking Wealth.
That amazing content you just saw is going live this Thursday on Talking Wealth. Now, moving on, if you want to talk about a stock or ask a question, pick up your phone right now and give us a call on a 03 929 09988. That's 03 for Melbourne, 929 09988. Or you can text the number on your screen. Now, whilst we wait for your call, let's get into our next email. Now, Jack writes, looking forward to part 2 of the microcap video on YouTube. Rocket DNA's fundamentals look great, but their chart looks a bit like a penny stock. Now, I know you guys will discuss it in part 2 of the video, but would you briefly discuss it tonight along with a potential strategy for investing in a fundamentally sound company with a chart that's not ready for entry? Now, we talked about this on our recording for the microcap conference. I think part 1's already up. That went up Friday last week.
Yes.
So part 2's probably going up in the next day or so people can watch out for that one. We are talking about this stock then. So I'm going to go to you, Phil.
Yeah, it was an interesting company. I mean, obviously in the drone space as well, not in the defence area of drone, more in, mining.
It's quite exciting.
Yeah, and autonomous drones as well. So there is a very nice story with this one, but if we go to the chart and have a look, I think you're totally right, Jack. Right now the stock's trading at 1.4 cents. So it's definitely a penny stock.
A bit expensive, isn't it?
So right now, I mean, if you look at the way the nature of these weekly bars look, my biggest concern is the liquidity. Is there enough liquidity? Is there enough volume? What does the spread look like on this kind of stock? What does the depth look like? I would implore you to go and look at all of those things, because it's one thing getting in on that stock, but I mean, if there's no volume for you to sell, you might find you're stuck in here, and particularly if the price doesn't line up with this kind of stock in terms of the fundamentals. They don't, moving forward. I know you're nodding your head, Janine. It's
shaking. It's called shaking.
Yeah, but I mean, look, these are microcap stocks, and at some point.
But look, who should be trading these? That's my biggest question.
Yeah, I mean,
saying trading them.
It was more investing long term.
It's more investing in, because you've got a stock like this. This is like Friday night pub money that, when you go to the pub, you put so much money in your pocket, you spend it, you've had a good night, and you come home again. This is sort of pub money type thing, where you might put, all right, I'm going to put $1,000 in it, and I'm just going to sit on it. Because behind the company, they're very impressive, and it's what the stuff that they use for those drones for. It's just amazing the things that they're doing with them, and helping farmers, helping miners, helping all sorts of people, security,
Okay, if we're going to use pub money to put on this,
don't be drunk.
can we time our entry better then? How about that?
You can, but then a lot of these companies don't necessarily, they work more on news. So you've got to understand the company itself. You've got to understand the management team. You've got to understand what they're coming up and what announcements are going to be happening.
So what you're saying, because the liquidity is quite low, it could go up in price, but that doesn't mean it's the start of a run because there's such low liquidity.
You've got to be prepared for a rocky road,
could be a
and
false
stay
start.
the course, because if it's got a good, not just a good story, but a good future, because it could be a takeover target as it gets bigger too. But it's, to me, I've seen them present 2 years in a row at the Microcap conference, and I was impressed day one. Went no too early, and saw them again, a week or so ago, and I was really impressed with them again. Now, it's not the kind of stock I would buy for myself, but again, if you throw a 5,000, 1,000, whatever it is that pub money to you is, throw that in and come back in 5 years' time and see what happens.
Can I come to the pub with you?
You can come to the pub with me. I'll buy you margaritas.
Yeah, I said it perfect. I mean, you don't expect clean price action here, or to think of it as a trading stock. Really, it's an investing stock, and as you said, use your spare cash, and you never know at 1 cent how much lower can it go, right?
The fundamentals mean it should start to grow.
At some point, they always do, right? You never see a company with rising earnings and really growing fundamentally, stagnant in terms of price.
All right, we now have a caller on the line. Welcome to the Australian Stock Market Show. Who have I got on the line?
Yeah, g'day guys, it's Alex here.
Hi Alex, thanks for calling in. What's your question for us tonight?
Yeah guys, so my question is in regards to Vulcan Energy. I was wondering, I'm currently in the stock, and it looks like all the news that's been coming out in the last couple of months has been received positively. And today the company was in a trading halt, and I think from what I could find on the internet is in regarding to German federal government providing $100 million as funding to the company. So I was wondering if you have a look at the technical analysis of this company and provide your thoughts on what you would see this going forward.
All right, we can do that. Is this a short, medium or long-term trade for you?
Yeah, medium, the next 18 months, yeah.
Okay, and have you got an exit strategy on it?
Yeah, I'll just keep following the trend upwards, and when I get the signal on sort of Dow theory, I guess I'll get out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to throw this one over to Phil because I'm sure he's got it up there, but thanks for calling in, Alex. What do you reckon? Vulcan Energy.
Yeah, mate, great choice, love it. Let's go to the chart and really dissect.
People often think announcements or price being frozen or stock frozen, or what do you call it?
Yeah.
That's a negative thing, but sometimes it's super positive.
Oh, well, it's very positive in this instance. I mean, if it's come out of the trading halt, generally our software will say whether it has or it hasn't. It'll show that it's in a halt. So it looks like it's come out, and the stock is now breaking through those previous highs of May 2024. I mean, talk about trade.
Just go to the daily chart for a moment, just so I can have a look. I just want to see what it meant on the daily time frame. So that's the announcement, is it?
Yeah.
There.
Yep, it's out of trading.
And what? Yep. Okay. So that's just come out. How much has that gone up as a percentage? From the close of the previous day.
A lot.
So it's gone up more than around 10%
yeah.
or so, right? So is that significant? Because
well, absolutely, because the news has come out and it's been supported with buying, so that is significant. But to me, what is more significant is obviously this stock, the way it's performed since coming out of October 2023. We always say, don't try to catch falling knives, but some of the best opportunities do come around significant market reversals or turning points. And this one has given you two very distinct indications that it is finding a low. And what I mean by that is, you can see if we zoom out, and I'll zoom on the monthly chart for you. Once coming into that October 2023 low, we had a test in January 2024. So that's the first inkling that, hey, okay, maybe this stock doesn't want to go lower. We've shot out with fantastic buying, and then we've seen the seller activity literally consolidate sideways rather than go down. And now we've broken out to new highs, taking out the May 24 high there. So we've had two higher bases after coming off a huge reversal where the stock's fallen about 70 or 70 odd, 80 odd percent. And so to me, we can also throw on top, it's broken through long-term momentum. I really love the way this stock looks. It's being backed by a beautiful story now, it seems, to give it that other tailwind to go forward. And I love the idea, Alex, about, you're going to trail this on the way up. You've got your rules in place.
I think we give him an elephant stamp for that one.
Nothing more to say, yes.
All right, well, we've now got another caller on the line. Welcome to the Australian Stock Market Show. Who have I got on the line?
This is Mohammed Azhar, Dale and Janine. Great show on the technology sector. I'm looking for a stock called SYR, Sierra Resources Technology.
Yep.
And it's trading at a multi-year low. The reports are coming good, and the Australian Super has been a biggest holder for this company. And Vanguard recently bought 5% stake in this company, but there is no sign of reversal. I have placed a bet, and I'm a long-term holder, 1 year plus. So I want to make a clarity that where this stock is heading, because I have been watching this stock for a long time, and it has been kept falling because of the graphite prices is being low, multi-year low. And I think it's a great solid company. I just need a clarity on this one. Thanks.
All right. Well, I'll get Janine to answer this one for you, but thanks for calling in. What do you reckon, Sarah?
Well, look, I think he's picked an interesting stock and it may have found a bottom there. What's good on the chart so far is where it's bottomed out, because we can see these long-term lows here, and if I just put a horizontal line there, it looks like it's come down just to find support off that low. I guess the challenge here is, in the short term, is that it could always go lower. So that's one thing to bear in mind, because I'd forget the news, because it doesn't matter who's investing in it. If it's not going up when you've got Australian Super going into it and someone else putting 5% in it, then there's something not quite right here. Maybe they're opportunistic and they're thinking, you know, long term it's an opportunity, which it could be, but in the short term, you don't worry about that, because there's still a risk to the downside while it's doing that. In saying that, if it turns around, and we've talked about lots of patterns on the show tonight, but if it turns around and rips back up through this level here, then you know that there's something to really get interested in. But wait for the money to actually tell you that it's actually a good investment, because right now there's nothing on the chart telling me. It could be just the smart money accumulating, but it's not certain.
And I think that's a danger, isn't it? Looking at some of the players that are in a stock and going, well, because these people are in it, I should be in it. And if they're in it long term, I should be in it, because at the end of the day, people tell me they only want to.
Well, how many? You know, they might put lots of money into small plays.
They do.
And how many of those go kaput, or you know,
they
don't make them any money?
Bigger purses, haven't they? And they'd probably put some into a stock like this and go, well, if it goes, but we're prepared to hold it for 10 years or more. Whereas to me, I don't know, investors always want stocks to go up. So why hold stocks that are going down? Because it's killing your portfolio return. And you don't have enough money to balance it out across them all anyway. So, but I'm with you. I wouldn't be in this stock at the moment. I wouldn't have been in it the last year, the way it was going. But anyway, thanks for calling in anyway. But Liam's now asking about Bitcoin's potential over the next 4 years. Now, with Trump winning the election, I can see crypto space being quite bullish, as the new president is very supportive of this area. So Liam's asking us about crypto. We talked a bit about that yesterday.
Yes, we did.
In our Australian stock market report for Talking Wealth. We brought the Bitcoin chart up. So what do you reckon? You want to have a go at it?
Look, it looks fantastic at the moment. I mean, if we just go and have a look at the chart on your screen, you can see
there's all these calls for 100,000.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it might get there, to be honest. I really do. I mean, Bitcoin's had experienced a really strong, I mean, this could have been argued that it could have been a topping type pattern, distribution, or it might also have been an accumulative type pattern. Now, you know, when you line up the fundamentals and the technicals, he's right. You know, Donald Trump was bullish on Bitcoin, obviously all throughout his campaign. He did mention that, you know, once he gets into power, or if he did get into power, he was going to get rid of one of the, I guess, a judge, a female judge that was one of the lawyers that was one of the regulators that was stopping Bitcoin from coming through with the regulation. So, I mean, if he sticks to his word and does that, obviously the market is anticipating.
But Bitcoin still runs on emotions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can just tell in the volatility. So we are, although I think 100,000 is achievable the way price is going right now, again, you've got to consider these vertical type moves that, you know, we often see. We saw it, you know, as the stock gets vertical in nature, it is met with significant pullback. So
every bull market has its tulips. Is this going to be one?
Well, very interesting you raise that question, because that's a whole other show. We're going to get into, you know, the topic of what happens cyclically all throughout history. The dot-com bubble in 2000, the tulips in 1600. Now, I'm not saying this is part of that. I mean, we're going off topic, but Is it a buying opportunity today, Bitcoin? I would argue that it is a little bit stretched. So unless you've already picked it up from these levels back at around 67 odd thousand, that's where I saw the opportunity. You know, 86,000 right now is a little stretched to me unless you're really short-term trading this.
So it might get to 100,000, but then it's probably, and Bitcoin has a history of falling 50+%.
Well,
it does fall.
And generally, you know, it's very clear in terms of a technical unfolding. You know, Bitcoin is one of those real easy stocks or instruments to trade on a chart.
It is.
You know, clearly you saw the stock run up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves in the previous occasion, and we're approaching that real similar type move. We're running on that 5th wave, which is very euphoric at the moment. Those who know what I'm talking about,
The advanced students will be loving that.
Will understand what I'm saying here, but I think this is probably in the short term maybe the last leg up before we see some selling come through.
All right, you had it there from Phil Land. Now remember to show your support for our channel and smash that like button. Now if you enjoy watching and want to see loads more of our content, click subscribe now. Subscribing helps others find our channel so we can help them too. Now before we let you go, what was your favourite part of the show? Was it our hot stock tip, our topic for the night, or was it a viewer question? Let us know by commenting below. Thanks to all those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook. And if you're watching on talkingwealth.com, stay tuned for more exciting stock picks, insights and strategies. We'll be right back with all of that and more. Next week in our main topic, we get into US versus China. Who's really driving the Australian share market? Make sure you join us next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. Now, if you love our show, remember to hit that like button now and subscribe to our channel, as this shows your support for the team that puts in the effort each and every week into bringing it to you. If you are subscribed, then you'll always know when we go live and put up new content. As always, thank you for joining us. For now, goodbye, good luck and good trading.